Well, welcome back to Five Friday Feedback. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a chance to listen back to Monday's episode. I do understand it was a little bit out there. It was a little bit out there for me, Dominic, but you said that was one of the more, as soon as we closed off, you're like, that was probably one of the more mind expanding / confusing episodes we've ever done. Probably outside of the time that I did the one on Bitcoin and blockchain and how that worked.
Oh, I forgot about that one. That one was a doozy and a half. That I don't even want to talk about blockchain technology and I don't even want to talk about it. I still don't get it. But the laws of the universe, I got those a little bit better. But yes, last podcast was absolutely mind expanding for the best ways possible. No LSD included with that podcast. Simply pure knowledge from our boy Chris here. We're going to recap a little bit of it. Now, that episode was a two-parter. Right, so stay tuned for the other few laws in next week's episode. It's going to be, I would say, equally as expanding. I have not recorded it yet. We have not recorded it yet, but it will be equally as expanding. We can promise that. So today, happy Friday. Obviously, if you're watching this on the day of it releasing, happy Friday. If not, hope you have a great week. We're going to be talking about the first 4 laws that we went over in Monday's podcast. That is, do you want to go over the laws real quick? You want to name them out and then we'll dive deep into them?
For sure. Yeah. So we talked about the law of a conservation of energy. And in physics, that says that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change its forms. So that's called transferred or transformed. Transferred is the better way to put it. The law of entropy, which is a physical phenomenon, knowing that entropy or disorder is a better word, always increases over time in a closed system. So no matter how difficult, so the more complex the system, the harder entropy will work to bring it back to disorder. The simpler the system, the less entropy there will be. The more places there are for things to fail, the more chances that it's going to fail, the larger it's going to fail. We talked about the butterfly effect, which shows that small, seemingly insignificant changes in the system can lead to large and often unpredictable outcomes. And the final thing we talked about was something that is both in biology and in physics, and that's feedback loops. And feedback loops can both be positive or negative. And in both biological and physical processes, positive feedback loops amplify changes, while negative feedback loops counter changes. They slow changes down. They keep you stagnant, where positive feedbacks keep you evolving.
Yeah, the feedback loop one was the one that kind of made the most sense to me, at least the most sense that I could see. But also the butterfly effect. That's a tough one. A lot of F's in there. Too many F's in there. Anyway, the butterfly effect is also one of those ones that you can kind of see in real life, in your day-to-day life. Now, the definition that everybody gives with butterfly effect is a butterfly flaps its wing in China. There's a tornado in Ohio. Sorry, Ohio. That's just how things go, right? But for us in our own life, seemingly insignificant changes can lead to much larger rewards, outcomes, right? Like the idea of compound interest and saving money, right? Put a little in, over time, it grows into something bigger, right? That's kind of like the butterfly effect, right, Chris?
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's seemingly small things like saving $5 a day or saving $2 a day. And how that small amount of things that if you said like, oh yeah, I saved $2 one time, that's gonna really mean anything. But if you do it enough time over enough years with the power of time and compounding behind you, it can really help to exacerbate something or take you to a place that you could never foresee. You know, a lot of people, they do say, oh, butterflies' wings in China can create a hurricane here in the US. And there is a causality that can happen if you understand how every single system is interconnected. I wouldn't know how that would work, but I think something that's a little bit easier for people to understand is a small earthquake in the Philippines. When you think about that small earthquake creating just enough of a ripple in the ocean to go over thousands and thousands of miles across the entire Pacific Ocean to create a tsunami that hits in California. That makes a bit more sense to us. Or it could be the opposite way. Earthquake in California, very small, could create a ripple effect that can even bypass Hawaii, bypass all of that, and hit the Philippines.
Sorry, Philippines.
It's these small, sorry, Philippines for our mistake, but it's these small, insignificant changes. You know, a small, like in California, it's like, oh, did we have an earthquake? I don't know what just happened. But then over time, due to that small compounding effect of causes and conditions over and over and over again, it leads to this huge catastrophic event that we could never have foreseen from some small little event that happened somewhere else. So we don't know what causes it. We don't know what caused human beings to start to walk upright. We don't know what small, seemingly insignificant change happened that eventually led to where we are today.
And, I want to bring this back to human decency for a second. You don't know this, but you can be the change. You can be the butterfly, not the one that causes the tsunami, but the small act of kindness can have a big impact, right? I read this story that this old man was in a shopping center, say a Walmart, something like that. And a mother and her little daughter's maybe 2-3 years old, smiled at him and wanted a hug. And little did the daughter or the mother know, but earlier that week, his wife had passed away. And he said, that's the first time anybody's ever hugged or smiled at me since then. And because of that, they started to see each other every week, and they would have play dates, and he would teach her, and all these different things happened just because of a smile, just because of a hug, right? And you could see that and be like, wow, that had a big impact. But really, it gave the man a reason to continue living because he hadn't had any other reason to continue. And it's so amazing to see these butterfly effects happen in our real lives. Now, that situation might not happen to you, but one small act of good or evil can change anybody's life. So I hope it's an act of good, an act of kindness, right? We're trying to spread goodness and kindness in this world and kind of leave the world in a better place, maybe. And we got it.
When you talked about that, it made me think of this concept that Mohnish Pabrai talks about. He is the author of The Dondo Investor, big investor, very much a Warren Buffett-esque in value investing circles. But he talks about picking up free lottery tickets. And when you talked about that, of being kind, I thought of the exact same thing. Free lottery tickets. What's the cost of kindness? Nothing. It's insignificant. It's like picking up a free lottery ticket. You'd be silly to be like, oh, I don't want that free lottery ticket. It's too much energy for me to bend down and pick it up. It's the same thing for kindness. Now, I'm not saying some kind of kindness can be expensive. You can be sending someone thousands of dollars, you can be doing all this stuff, but just a smile, a wave, a shake of the hand, saying a positive comment rather than tearing somebody down. It costs you literally nothing. Okay, maybe not literally, but it costs you
essentially
nothing.
Yeah.
And the upside could be the winning lottery ticket, could be changing your life forever.
Yeah.
And I would feel that it's the opposite negatively. Negatively, it costs you a little bit, maybe sometimes, or it costs you a lot, but the downside is substantially higher.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with perspective too, right? I mean, everything has to do with perspective, right? You could on one hand say, well, I have to be nice to this guy, or I get to be nice to this guy, right? And for me, when I'm nice to other people, when I'm good to other people, when I'm serving other people, that's energizing me. That's giving me good energy. It's giving me purpose, right? For me, one of my purposes in life is to be a force for good. And if I can help more people, whether that's an old lady crossing the street, whether that's helping someone over here, whether that's talking about the laws of the universe with Chris and expanding and all that fun stuff, right? That gives me energy. That energizes me because that's what I believe is my purpose. I just want to be as good a force for good as I can, right? But it's through the lens that I look at it, right? It's not like, oh, I have to go record with Chris because we got to teach finance, and I have to help this old lady across the street because she didn't do her squats back in the day and all this. It's like, no, I love doing this. I love doing this. It's because the lens I look through it as my purpose, right? So be careful which lens you're looking through things and make sure you're doing good in the universe, doing good in the world.
I think you really hit on something very strong that I've been trying to explore more in my life of sometimes two people can have the exact same goal, yet the motivation that they use to get to that goal will seemingly either make the goal worthwhile or not worthwhile, even though the goal is the exact same thing. Because if you put in a dirty input, you're going to get a dirty output. If you put in a clean input, you're going to get a clean output. So sometimes, while the goal may be the same, but the intentions are completely different. So maybe somebody's goal could be, I want to be able to make $1 million a year. Both people have the same exact goal. One person has that goal so that they can be financially independent. They can devote their time to helping people, to spending time with their family, to doing all these things. Positive goal, positive input, positive output. The other person has a goal. I want to be $1 million so that I can tell everyone to F off. I can, be in control of people. I can have power. I can have prestige. I can have all these things. Both people might fundamentally reach their goal. They both might become millionaires every single year. But the person who did it with the source of, this is the reason I'm doing it for other people. I'm doing it from a place of good. And what is good and what is bad, it only can be determined by you, the individual. They're going to get there. They're going to feel like they're enough. They're going to be able to feel joy in that. But the person who had the negative fuel, doesn't matter if they reach it or not. They're not going to feel good enough because the input they put in was negative and the output they got out is, again, negative.
Interesting. So how much of the input do you think it's better to burn clean or burn negative? Because I know that anger, that rage can be very powerful, but very dangerous as well.
There's something we haven't talked about in a while here on the podcast. We used to talk about it all the time, and that's Star Wars. And in Star Wars, there is a reason that people go to the dark side. There is strength in the dark side of the Force, and there is strength in that negativity. And I believe that it's a place that, unfortunately, many people, I think in this day and age, are living majority of their life in the dark, in that dark energy. My whole thing in life has always been 80-20. It's the Pareto principle, 80-20. 80% of your effectiveness comes from 20% of the work. But that 80-20 can be brought into many different realms. It's one of those things, again, that might be a truth. And when I look at my life, I choose to live 80% in the light, 80% in the good things, and the reason that I'm doing things from a positive standpoint. But that 20%, that negative energy, can push you through a hump. But it's just like using NOS in a gas tank. Every so often, if you need to get past that line, if you're racing somebody, you need to get there a little bit faster, use some NOS. But if you want to go 80% NOS, 20% gas, your car's going to blow up. Like, they're not going to be able to get there. That 80-20 principle affects so many different things. I also would say that most people in life, they go through 80% of the time they're doing things that they hate, so that 20% of the times they can do things that they love. And I think if you take that exact same principle and try to do 80% of the time doing things that you love, so that 20% of the time you have to do things that you hate in order to do that, it's your obligation to try to do that. But people never see it that way. They take the 80-20 principle and they invert it.
Yeah.
So yes, there is power in the dark side, but there's also pathology in the dark side.
And I think that's why so many young men align so well and they fall in love with Darth Vader, right? Anakin Skywalker, because he was just this innocent kid, right? Who was trying his best to be good, doing what he felt was right, only to be consumed by the dark side, by the anger, by the rage, but in the end comes back and kind of defeats it, right? And it's like I'm speaking for men just because that's who we are, that's who I can relate to, but we've all been there like that. Like it's not even Hayden Christensen. Like it's like you see yourself in the character, and that's why it's so beautiful, because we've all been consumed by the anger, by the rage, by the darkness, right? But not all of us can come out the other side in the way that he did. Now, we hope that you don't have to go through the darkness, but I think it might even be a coming of age for guys. It's better to, I'm trying to remember the quote. I think it was Jordan Peterson, but it's better to know how to be angry, to be rageful, right? And to control it. And I'm trying to remember the quote exactly, It wasn't the.
I don't, I don't know the exact quote, but there's another quote that is very similar. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Mhm.
And I think you're exactly right. I think that young men today, they feel powerless, they feel scared. And I think the most dangerous thing isn't someone who is strong and knows how to sheath their sword, who knows that they can win a fight. It's the person who is untested, who has to prove something not only to society, but more scarily to themselves. That person is extremely dangerous. The person who you know is a killer, at least you know they're a killer. It's the person that you don't know anything about. It's the person that you pretends to be good under this falsity of like, I'm the good guy, but in truth, they really are the bad guy. That is the scariest person. The double agent is truly the scariest person.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we talked a little bit about a lot of them. Is there another one you wanted to touch on out of the four that we covered?
You said that you understood the butterfly effect quite well, and you understood feedback loops quite well. What I'd like to do in that case is let's talk about conservation of energy and entropy, because if you're supposed to be the stand-in for our listeners, supposed to ask the questions, and if you don't understand it, then clearly I didn't explain it well enough. Okay. So let's explore that a bit more in our before we hit 5 Friday feedback. So hopefully our listeners who are listening on Monday and maybe we're like, I don't understand how this relates to finance. Maybe if we talk about it a bit more, I can try to expand upon it. And I need to figure it out better for myself. If I can't explain it, then clearly I don't understand it well enough in my own regards.
100%. So let's start off with the law of conservation of energy, right? Do you want to hit us with the definition for those who missed Monday's episode?
Of course. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change forms. So the way that I apply this to finance is that your financial energy, whether that's time or money or your effort, is finite. You only have so much energy you can put in, and that's however much energy you consume. You can't create unlimited wealth without putting in energy first. You just can't come into wealth without doing anything for it. And I think that this is the basis for like all things. Too many people want life to be easy. No one ever came into this world and was told that life was going to be easy. If you were told that, someone lied to you. They didn't know. Life is meant to be hard. It's meant to be suffering. That's how we get better. That's how we grow. That's how we create, is through that energy. But you have to remember that energy can't be created or destroyed. It can only be transformed, transmuted, much like alchemy. And alchemy is a fake, or maybe not a fake, but it's a forgotten science that we realize, hey, this doesn't work, or at least from a physics standpoint. There's nothing in physics that says that alchemy can't work. It's just we haven't figured it out. So we believe that it doesn't work. But it's the exact same thing. It's equivalent exchange. In order for me to get an input, I must put in order for me to get an output, I must put this an input that is of equal exchange. That's equivalent exchange. Mm-hmm. And it's a universal law. Universal law is equivalent exchange. That's the conservation of energy.
And what has this law taught you in your finances and in your life, really?
The thing that I try to put with this is, or what I try to think when I think of the conservation of energy, is that when I get money, when I get anything in life, energy needs to flow. So I think of, I use this law of conservation of energy along with the law of entropy. If you try to dam up energy, it will dissipate. In a closed system, it will move towards disorder. It will move towards chaos. It will go away. So my goal when I have money, if I view money as energy, is to keep the energy flowing. It's the same thing when you think of like an arc reactor. Arc reactors don't work because we try to keep energy stagnant. They work because we move energy around in a circle. So the energy is constantly moving. It's the same way that a large hadron collider works. Mm-hmm. They work in the same system of moving energy so that it's constantly moving around. And of course, we don't have infinite amounts of space for things to move in, but a circle is perfect. A circle keeps momentum moving. And that's where the idea of, in alchemy, the transmutation circle came through, which I know we're getting out far, but in alchemy, there were, I think it was Thomas Edison actually, he dedicated more of his time to alchemy than he did any other science. And a lot of that information was actually hidden because people were like, oh, this guy was wackadoo. Well, maybe it takes somebody who's wackadoo to go ahead and create all of these other things, all of the other great things that Edison came into. Thing with Nikola Tesla. He was into a bunch of like voodoo witchcraft stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And their concept of the circle being the arc of power, because the circle is where energy is constantly flowing, because energy in a circle just continues inside of a closed loop. That's a closed loop system, is a circle.
Interesting. Okay. I'm getting there. I'm definitely getting there. And hopefully the listeners, you've already got there or you're getting there as well with me. So I'm trying to figure out how I can best utilize this conservation of energy in my own life. And one of the ways that I'm thinking that I could best use it is to think about how my time is being spent and how, let's say for my job, right? How I spend my time at my job to get money or the energy, and how that energy is spent. Because like we said, energy can't stay stagnant. If it stays stagnant, it decreases, right? But the only way to grow it is to keep it moving, right?
Let's try this.
Okay.
So we just talked about alchemy, right? And alchemy, the first rule of alchemy is the law of equivalent exchange. In order for me to create something, I must give something of equal value. I can't give something of less value and create an output. I can't give one and then expect two. I must give the same equivalence. Now, alchemy is again, I don't believe is real, or I don't know if there's a way that we can figure it out. But in the conservation of energy, everyone hopes that I don't have to put in any work and I'm just going to have money come to me. If money is energy, why do you think that you don't have to do it, that law of equivalent exchange? In order for you to get energy, you must go ahead and take from something else. In order for all life to work, there is truly a circle of life. There is truly, all things are interconnected. In order for me to be able to put energy to talk, that means that I had to eat this morning. If I ate, that means I ate an egg. I ate biological life. If I didn't eat biological life, then I ate vegetables, which is another form of biological life. I took energy from something else, converted it in myself, and then I had putting that energy into this podcast, into work, into whatever it is. And the energy is not being created. I'm not creating it from something. I transformed energy from something else into myself. The energy is not being destroyed. It's not going away. I am now converting that energy. I'm changing the energy's form from inside of me to whatever value I'm bringing to bring me money. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
It's starting to make a little bit more sense. And I think the more I think about it, the more I kind of pontificate on it, it'll start to connect. I think, do you think being that it's the first law, it's the most important one?
I didn't put these in any particular order.
Okay. I just was curious. I wasn't sure, let's move on to the second one. The law of entropy. Yes.
Yeah. Entropy or disorder. This is chaos.
Yeah.
So the universe is trying to bring order to chaos. And if you want to, you could use the words God and the devil. You could use whatever words you want. There is order and there is chaos. This is also the yin and yang, the male and feminine energy. All of these things are interconnected again. And as you see it more different places, you're like, holy crud. Maybe if it continues to work and people bring it up across time, across situations, across places, across people, maybe we're moving closer to what truth is. So entropy or disorder always increases over time in a closed system. Remember, a closed system is a circle. A closed system is anything that it works within itself. So the more complex the system, the more room for entropy, the more entropy is working against it, the more places that system can fail. But if you have a very simple system, what's our system for becoming financially independent? Make more than you spend, invest the difference. I try to have, like, our system tries to be as simple as you possibly can. Yes, you can go a mile deep into each one of these things. How are you making more money? We can go very deep in there. How are you spending less money? We can go very deep there. How am I allowing that energy to continue to flow by investing it properly? We can go very deep there. But at the core fundamental, it's a very simple system. Make or spend less than you make, invest the difference. Don't dam up the energy by trying to keep it under your bed or anything like that, because entropy in the terms of economics is inflation.
So you believe, based on that, right, that if your energy isn't used, it's wasted, right? say I work
Again,
for 50 years and I put it in my savings, right? And after the end of my life, I don't spend any of it and I just die, right? You would say that that was probably be a waste of your time, of your life, of your money, right?
no, I probably wouldn't say that. To
Okay.
be fair, though, I don't. In what I believe, I don't know what I believe. It
Okay.
constantly changes. Like I'm like the biggest flip flopper person in the world. I can learn something one day and then immediately be like, "Oh, this is what I think is true," and I'll get rid of it. One of
Mhm.
the ways that I always like to talk with people is I say, "This is my bad idea. Let me tell you my bad idea." You and I have had conversations off the pod where I've told you, "Hey, this is my concept of reality. Here's my bad idea, and let's go from there." Because I don't believe that I know what truth is. I'm trying to figure that out, and I've had enough experiences to think that I thought I was right to realize that I was completely wrong. And that's what you do with a theory. You continue to move forward. Remember that from the first law, conservation of energy, energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be transmuted, transformed. So if you took all that money, you dammed it up, you hid it, well, that energy isn't created, that energy isn't being destroyed, but is it flowing? Is it transforming? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Or is it just sitting in one spot doing nothing? Now,
Mhm.
I don't know how the story ends. So maybe if you kept that money saving in a savings account, it only stayed at $50,000 or whatever. Well, maybe the story goes that it ends right there with you, and now the money is absorbed back to the government and it's absorbed back into the system. Or maybe that money gets passed down to a kid who takes that energy, and now they, instead of holding the energy, trying to conserve the energy, they put it into something else that allows that energy to begin to flow again. And I get money as energy is a weird concept. I still think it's weird to call it energy. Money is money. But if you understand, but money doesn't work in a physics standpoint. Money is an intersubjective thing. Energy is is real. That is objective truth. Regardless if human beings were around today, if we all disappeared tomorrow, energy would still be a thing. Money would not be a thing. So if we have that stand-in, then we can understand that, oh, that's what Chris is saying. Money is energy. Money is intersubjective. It's a story that we all believe, therefore we believe in it. But it's not objective truth. If we all disappeared tomorrow, yes, physical dollars would still be here, but they wouldn't mean anything. All the numbers, all that stuff would go away. There are natural laws that we obey that are objective truths.
Gotcha.
And money is not an objective truth. It is intersubjective truth. It is a story that we all believe. That is it.
It's just a construct of our society for the time we spend for a good that we get back, right?
Yeah, and it makes sense. It makes sense why we do it. And if you
Yeah.
look at the history of where money comes from, it all makes sense. Before that, we had a barter system.
Yeah.
Or before barter systems, we had equivalent exchange of just, I would do something for you, do something for me because we're part of a small band.
Yeah.
And we know from the literature, a human being can usually have about 100 people in their Rolodex of like, I did this for you, you do this for me. We understand the equivalent exchange.
Mhm.
Out of those 100 people, we knew that maybe 1 or 2% of those people were sociopaths. But in a closed loop system, if there's only 1 or 2 people, they can get away with that for long enough. But there's a reason that only 1 or 2% of the population is a sociopath, because if there's too many, then the system stops working because now we don't have that law of equivalent exchange. So if we do that over and over and over again, we eventually got to a barter system of I'll trade you for this and I'll trade that to you. But eventually we get to a system that's so big like we currently have where everyone is interconnected. I can't keep 100 people. There's not just 100 people in my little world. There's all the people in my little world. So what we needed to do was we need to create a new system, a system of money where it doesn't matter. Like if I had a chicken, you had shoes, and I said, hey, I want those shoes. I'll give you a chicken. You're like, I don't want a chicken. Well, all I have are this chicken. But if we have a new medium exchange where I trade the chicken for cash, I give you the cash for the shoes. You now have the cash. You can go buy whatever you want, whether that be a tire or a wheel or whatever. That's where money comes from. It's that system trying to figure out itself because we don't have the ability to have trust. Trust is what everything was built on. Money supersedes trust. I don't need to trust you to do business with you as long as you pay me.
Mhm.
Of course, it makes it easier.
100% it makes it easier. Okay. So they're kind of soaking in a little bit. They're definitely soaking in a little bit. I'm locked in with the butterfly effect. I'm locked in with the feedback loop. The law of entropy. I almost missaid it. Hopefully I didn't mispronounce it that time. But that one's locked in. And the law of conservation is one of those things that I'm just gonna have to sit with for a while to really let it soak in. So
could you try to give me, how would you explain entropy to somebody, the law of entropy?
I would say our society is a great example of it, because it seems like disorder and chaos is always the direction that we want to go. And that's always kind of talked about, right? Oh, it's the end of times. Our country is going to this. There's riots, there's fires, there's earthquakes, there's political unrest, inflation. Like, everything is going bad, right? But it's the small stories in the chaos that keep us aligned. It's the firefighter who flew in from a different state or a different country to come and help. It's the house that burned down, but the crosses are still standing. It's stuff like that kind of where you find hope in the chaos. And it's our job as humans to keep the chaos at bay and really just be good to one another. And that's kind of my thought process around it. Now, obviously, I gave an easier example to equate it to, but there's going to be a lot more things that I need to learn about it to really let it soak in. But yeah, hopefully that was pretty. Would you say that's an accurate representation? Somewhat accurate?
I don't think there is a right and wrong answer here.
Okay.
There is the physical law that of what it is, but the way that you interpret it is just work. Does it work or not work? Like, there are people, there are many people around this world who have all different religions, who have different creeds, different thoughts, different ways the world works. Each one of us wants to say that the way that I work, the way that I think is the right way to work. But whatever they believe, if it works for them and it does not harm other people, what does it matter to you? I think it's wrong for people to have a belief and to believe that their belief is real. Just because something is real to you, that doesn't make it any less real, but that does not make it reality.
I agree. So with that being said, I say we move on to our Five Friday feedback. Any final thoughts on that, Chris?
No, I look forward to bringing on the next 4 this next week. Again, in the comments, if you were like, I don't understand what the heck Chris was talking about, I get it. I think it's a little crazy too, but I'm just trying to show you that there are different ways to look at finances, to be like, oh, the reason that it's hard for me to, maybe you're thinking like the law of conservation of energy. Like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not putting any work out there, but I just want money to come to me. Why is this not happening? It's happening for other people. Well, you don't know what energy they put in. You only see the output. You don't see the inputs that they put in. Maybe it's the law of entropy. Every time that I have this really great financial system, it's 20 pages long. I have this crazy financial plan. And for some reason, I can't figure it out because of entropy. The system is too complex that it's not working anymore because it's trying to dissolve to chaos. And you have to put an equal amount of work to dissolve that chaos. So maybe if we simplified the plan, it would work for you. Again, if you don't know what step to take, it means that the first step you made is too big. So make the steps smaller. Make the steps smaller. Make the steps smaller.
Absolutely. That being said, welcome back to Five Friday Feedback Viewer Mailbag. So this is our mailbag for the week. Wealth management versus Wall Street. What's the truth? Alrighty. So our listener has wrote in, obviously, and this is the letter. Howdy, Fi Guys. I am currently studying finance in college, and I'm trying to figure out what career path best aligns with me. Interesting that you're you know what? I'll save my comments for the end. So, as I've been exploring different options, wealth management has caught my eye. But I've noticed something that's been giving me a bit of a pause. Every time I talk to a professional or I look at career rankings, wealth management seems to be a bit low on the rankings. It's a bit of a bad rap. I see investment banking, sales, trading, and private equity, or even venture capital at the top of almost every list, while wealth management is usually placed much lower. A lot of people seem to look down on it, and I'm not sure why. However, the wealth advisors I know seem to be doing very well for themselves. They have a great work-life balance. They are financially successful and genuinely enjoy what they do. It doesn't seem as stressful or competitive as investment banking or sales or trading, but they seem to be content and fulfilled in their careers. Chris, I've been following your work at the Fi Guys, or with the Fi Guys, and you seem to really enjoy what you do. From what I can tell, wealth management has been a positive and rewarding career choice for you. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on wealth management is on why it's so underrated in finance. Is there something I'm missing, or is it just a matter of perception? I'm leaning towards wealth management. I'm leading towards wealth management because it feels like a career where I can build long-term relationships and have a meaningful impact on people's lives while also creating a solid financial future for myself. But I'm curious if you think there's something I should be aware of or consider before fully committing. Thank you so much for your insight. I really appreciate it. From wealth management's the goal, but is it the ultimate role? Alrighty. Interesting. I think it's smart to see the people who are actually in wealth management and see how they like their job. I also think it is important to know thyself and see what it might be a great job. I'm sure it is a great job, but is it a great job for you? Time to find out. Chris?
Yeah, I think it's important that you at least ask people that have stepped before you to see, is this where I want to go? Because it's hard to be like, you can't be like, oh, I know myself, this is something I want, if you have no real background or understanding in it. So I'm glad that he's doing research. He's looked into different things to do in finance. What's your thoughts in the Wall Street way of doing things, the private equity, the venture capital, investment banking, versus like a wealth manager? Do you have any knowledge on that maybe I could expand upon for you?
I have a little bit of knowledge on the venture capital, the Wall Street, not so much the investment banking, but yeah, I would love if you expanded on as many as you could. I mean, he does seem like he wants something a little bit less competitive, a little bit less stressful. Totally understandable. But yeah, that's kind of my first take on it.
So I guess when I think about this, the first thing I'm going to think about is, why does financial advising get such a bad rap? And there's a myriad of different options or reasons for that. Number one reason is that most financial advisors, and this is the way things have historically worked, most financial advisors are looking to extract capital at any point that they can. In fact, private equity, investment banking, everything in Wall Street is extracting capital at every single point of the process. They're trying to basically bypass the law of equivalent exchange and take something for nothing over and over and over again. So the reason that most wealth advisors are looked down upon, they're like the lowest in terms of the totem pole of finance, is because it's an extremely difficult field. Out of 10 people that join a wealth management services to be an advisor, one succeeds. A 90% attrition rate is for financial advisors. It's one of the most difficult professions because not only do you have to be good with quote unquote money, investing, understanding all these things work, you also need to be a good salesperson. You need to be able to interact and communicate with people. You need to be good at running a business. You need to be good at managing people. All of these things are wrapped up into being a wealth manager. They're extremely difficult to do because the person who is good at maybe investing or good at one of these factors, there are very few people, if any, that are good at all of the factors in being a wealth manager. So the way that the industry is set up, unfortunately, is there are many big brokerage firms that will bring in a group of 100 people. They'll tell them, hey, this is the way that you're going to run your business, blah, blah, blah. I want you to go out there, go to mommy's and daddy's friends, and I want you to sell to them. I want you to get them to be your clients. Knowing that if you just keep on bringing people on, it is a pyramid scheme. It's legitimately a pyramid scheme. We're bringing people in, you're going to bring all these, but with the only thing that's different with the advisors, you're not bringing people underneath you until later on. That's when that comes in. But you're bringing people in, you're trying to get mommy's and daddy's friends' assets. Eventually you do that, then each one of the big brokerage firms will have quotas that you have to constantly hit over and over and over again. The moment you don't, you get fired. And guess who keeps all of that money? Not you, you just got fired. The big brokerage firm keeps that money. So they're incentivized to bring as many people as they possibly can in, knowing that 90% of them are going to fail. But even in their 90% fail rate, they're still making money because they just got whoever, all those 90% people who failed, before they failed, they at least brought in some money. And they didn't really put much money into them. Does that make sense of how that works?
That makes complete sense, and it's very concerning. That's crazy.
Yes.
That's the framework. That is crazy, man.
Yeah, it's extremely difficult for people to get into this industry because every part of it is almost set up to make you fail or to get you to fail. The only way to really learn is to go into what I believe is like the RIA side, the fiduciary advisor side of the business, and try to learn that teaching people or selling investments is not the goal. Selling information, selling knowledge, selling mindset is the goal. So my company is a little bit different than other financial advisors. Yes, we do traditional financial advising and then we help with just the investments and stuff. But the bigger thing that I do is I try to teach the mindset, the personal side of the personal finance, because I believe that that's 90 or 80% of being quote unquote good with money, where most other advisors are only focused on the 10%. I think one time we did a podcast on the 10 things I've learned over 10 years of managing money.
Yes.
And one thing that I talked about was that product is not a portfolio and a portfolio is not a plan. Most people that enter into the financial services industry, they are selling a product. But a product is not a portfolio. Product and a portfolio, the definition is all of the things that you have that bring in money. And even that portfolio is not your plan. It's not how you're going to be successful. Because in truth, no one knows if you're going to be okay. No one knows, am I going to be okay? How much is enough? The only person that can answer that is you. Too often are financial advisors come into people's lives saying, I know what the future holds. I can be your savior. I am all these things to you. I'll tell you how much is enough. I'll tell you how much is okay. And just listen to me. But that's fundamentally untrue because they can't know that. Only you, the individual, can know those answers. But in a world that seems so uncertain, we all seek certainty just to feel better, just to not have to worry about it. But of course, if someone's lying to you, which they are, they're telling you you're going to be okay. I know this for fact. You don't know that for fact. We could save all the money in the world and get hit by a bus. The money didn't have nothing to do with any of that. That's just the way the world works. I mean, we could save all the money in the world. I can't tell you how many times I've had clients that I didn't, or people I didn't take on who said, okay, I understand how your model works and how your investments work, but what happens if, China invades America? How am my portfolio going to be doing then? To which I always say, I don't know. And if that's the case, if we have a civil war or something like that, your investment portfolio is quite honestly the last thing you will be worrying about.
Yeah.
If that's the world you're concerned about, that a nuclear apocalypse, civil war in America, whatever it is, your investments should be in precious metals. And I don't mean in gold. I mean in guns, bullets, and cans of food in a bunker.
Yeah. Truthfully.
Like, if that's what you're concerned about, then be a prepper. Do that. I don't know what the future holds. Maybe the people that are preppers that are out in the desert right now with their, like nuclear bunker, maybe they're the right ones. Maybe they're the ones who are going to be right. And all of us who are sitting here talking about how we're going to make more money, invest, how are we going to save the difference, all that stuff, maybe we're the wrong ones.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I'm just looking at the statistics and what serves me in my current life. What gets me to be the place that I want to be. And the place that I want to be is a place of abundance, a place where everyone's happy, where we're moving in a common goal. Living out in a desert, in a bunker would not be serving me as a person. But for someone who does that, who that does serve, wonderful. You do you. I'm glad that you're there. So your question is, what things am I missing? The first thing I want to tell you is that it's going to be hard. It's going to be extremely difficult because not only are you trying to sell yourself as a young person, it's hard enough to be in my mid 30s trying to tell people how to manage money. Imagine being right out of college. You're 22, 21 years old, and you're trying to tell somebody with you have zero experience. You've only have vague knowledge of experience that you don't actually know is true yet. You just hope it's true because someone told you. And now you're trying to tell other people truth. You have to experience it. Every time you deal with a suffering, you gain a wisdom. As a college student, you don't have enough sufferings to have enough wisdom to discern what is true and not true yet. I don't even have enough. That's the point of life, is we keep on learning. So the next question you ask is, why are things like investment banking, sales and trading, private equity, venture capital, why are they the top of the list? That's where the money is. they extract the most amount of money for what they do. And what I believe they do is when you look at actual physical goods, if I call a plumber, if I call a carpenter, if I call somebody, they're giving me a physical good and I will pay them for that. And we as a society value that very lowly. We value physical goods, the physical work that you're putting in, extremely like it literally means nothing because we believe that anyone can do it. But that's not true. Not anyone knows how to run wires through a wall. Not anyone knows how to build the foundation for a house. Not anyone knows how to fix a crack in a foundation or something in a plumbing. When you talk about private equity, venture capital, sales and trading, investment banking, what tangible good are those people creating? What thing can you look at and say, oh, that's because of that? My thought process is that each one of those extract money and give nothing for it. Don't get me wrong. There are venture capitalists, there's private equity, there are traders that make money, but again, it's all extractatory. They're taking from those private equity. They're taking from businesses, small businesses that aren't big enough to be on the stock market. They're purchasing into them. Those people who the private equity company now owns, they're going out, they're creating real services. They might be doctor's offices, veterinarians, dentists. They're putting real service. You're going somewhere, you're paying for a service, you're getting it. Now, the venture capital people are taking the money, they're extracting from that. And of course, when you're getting something for nothing, a lot of money is going to flow there because you're doing nothing for something, you're getting money from it. The only thing you do is just own it. And it's the exact same thing that we try to do as investors, as people who are trying to be financially independent. We are trying to get something by owning the S&P 500, owning a stock, owning a company that is going out into the world and creating a physical good. And we're giving something of ourselves. We're giving our money, that is our energy, in order for that company to go out there and continue to make money. It's the exact same rules that apply. So why does financial services get such a bad rap? It's because 90% of the people are going to fail. It's because majority of the companies are extractatory in nature. They're going to try to tell you to sell products. And if you're just a product salesperson, you're not really a financial advisor. You're just a salesperson, no different than someone who sells a car. Nothing wrong with selling cars, nothing wrong with any of it. But if you're trying to tell somebody that you're going to help them learn about finance, you're going to help them do these things, but only you're doing is selling a product, you're not creating a portfolio, and you're sure as shit not creating a plan. And not even that the plan is the best thing to sell. I believe we have to supersede the plan to give the person the right mindset to be able to figure out the plan themselves and be able to know their own truth. But again, these things are extremely hard to do. Not only do you have to be a financial advisor that knows all this, you also need to have the ability to market yourself, the ability to talk to people, the ability to do all of this stuff. And just like the law of entropy, as we have a more and more complex system, there's more points of failure. There's more chaos in the system that is constantly trying to unravel. So I'm really glad that you have people in your life that are financial advisors that seem successful. Because I'll tell you that that's very few and far between. And the people that you do meet are the successful ones. By definition, if you were part of the 90% who failed, you're not going to be there. You're not going to even be in that cohort of people that you see. So yeah, in general, financial advisors, I believe I have one of the best jobs in the world. That doesn't mean that it's also not one of the hardest jobs in the world. It's extremely difficult, but it's also wonderful to be able to meet with people, see them for where they are, help them get to the destination they're trying to get to. And I always tell people, I'm just guide. They decide. They're the ones who have to go through the journey. I'm basically just sitting there telling them, hey, if I was you, I would do this. Hey, before you try that, know about that snake pit over there. Know about that there's a vine that's going to trip you over here. Know about these things. But ultimately, they're the one who has to walk through the door. They're the one that has to put in the work. But for too long, financial advisors have told people, don't worry, you won't have to work any harder anymore. You won't have to do anything. I'll do it all for you. And you'll be successful. That's not true. That was never true. That was a lie that got people to believe that if they did no work, they would be quote unquote successful. And that's just not the way that physics works. That's not the way the world works. So that's the reason that financial advisors have kind of a lowly place, because they're looked as salespeople, because 90% of them are. They're looked at product peddlers, because 90% of the people are they are. They're looked as phonies, because 90% of them are. I don't know anything about you. All I did is read your letter, but it sounds like you're putting in some thought. you're putting in some knowledge, but what you don't have right now is experience. And that experience can come with time if you find the right mentor, the right people that can help build you up. But just know that this field is extremely difficult, and it's one of the most rewarding fields in the world if you do it right, if you do it by the values that you hold true. Maybe your values are, hey, I'm cool selling products to people. I'm cool just doing this. If that's the case, that's totally fine. You do you. If you're just like the guy who goes around and just sells whole life insurance because you truly believe that everyone needs whole life insurance, if you are, you're a dick. But if you
oh, that's really funny.
Just
tell him.
Gonna be honest.
Yeah.
But if you are that person and you believe that truly to your being, okay, you do you and go out and do that. But too many people go into this service, I think, wanting to help people, wanting to do good, wanting to do what I feel that I do. You know, not selling products, not selling portfolios, not selling even plans, selling the mindset, selling the ability for you to be the hero of your own story by teaching you how to do it. I think that's extremely rewarding. But if you went in there thinking that I'm going to be this person to those people, I'm going to be those person's guides, and then you end up just due to the physics of finance, to having to survive, end up selling products, end up just doing that, yeah, most people in that case are going to fail because they're not living the way they want to. They're doing something that is challenging. By definition, financial advising is extremely challenging. Most people want you to fail, even the people who are on your side. There's a lot of snakes. That's just from my own experience. Most people are not good in this industry. Most people are looking for people to fail. Most advisors, unfortunately, the ones who are failing, the top 10%, the ones that succeed, they're doing wonderfully. They know that the world is abundant and that we don't need to be cutthroat with one another, that there are so many people that need help. And each advisor can probably only handle a max of, I don't know, 20 to 60 to maybe 80 people, clients at a time. Yet every advisor is like, there's not enough. There's not enough advisors. There's not enough people. Like you go to a freaking concert, you go outside, like I'll see 80 people. And I know that majority of those people need advisors. So it's not the top 10%, the people that maybe that you know, the people like me who know that the world is abundant, who are comfortable, who know what enough is for themselves too, and enough for their company. Those are the people you have to worry about. But the odds that you're going to run into one of those 1 out of 10 people is very, very low. What's more likely is you're going to run into one of the other 9 people, the people that are failing, the people that are almost on their way out and are trying to extract nothing or extract everything for nothing. Those are the people that you're going to have to walk over. Those are the people that are going to try to drag you down. It's like crabs in a bucket. The idea of crabs in a bucket is if you put a bunch of crabs in a bucket, as one crab begins to get out of the bucket, all the other crabs will grab onto it and pull it back down with it because they're trying to escape too. That's what those other 90% of people are going to do in this industry. It's extremely hard. It's extremely cutthroat in many ways, although it does not have to be.
Well, I hope that message helps him. Sure helped me. I'm not even applying for wealth management. Good Lord. My goodness. Well, best of luck. Thank you for writing in. And Chris, thank you for giving some very useful insights on the world of finance. Yeah, that was very interesting to say the least. So with that being said, let's get on to win of the week. Chris, I think you have a pretty good win of the week. I have a good win of the week. What do you got for win of the week?
So my win of the week is in a few months, we're going to be going to Texas for a friend's wedding. And while there, we have to spend 2 nights there. Now, my wife and I both have the Venture X credit cards, which gives us money back every year to buy hotels. So we were both able to book 2 nights at a pretty nice hotel for our friend's wedding. And we only paid $6.34 out of pocket for the hotels. The rest of it did come from fees. So we had to pay for the fees on the credit card, mind you. But the value we extracted from that got us 2 nights in a hotel for $6. And most fees on credit cards are like $100. Most hotel rooms are like $400, $300. You can do the math for yourself.
That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. So that was the Venture X credit card. You get like 2 free nights. You get 1 free night, but each of you have the card, so you get 2 combined, kind of.
Yeah. So that card gives you $300 in credits every year, and 10,000 points every year. And the annual fee on that card's $395. So it's an expensive card.
Yeah, for sure.
But you get $300 in credit, and you get 10,000 points. So the way I look at it is I get $300 for it, and then 10,000 points, if you just do it the normal way, you don't hack it like I do, is worth $100. So the way I look at that card is I get paid $5 a year to keep it, given that I use the benefits on it. So yes, since my wife and I both have the card, I booked a night on my card. She booked a night on her card. We called the hotel and said, hey, can you combine the 2 nights? Which we typically don't even call. We just show up there and we say, hey, we're both on these rooms. And they just combine the rooms.
Heck yeah. That's freaking awesome. That's freaking awesome. My win of the week is last night I went with some friends to go stargazing, right? A little bit north of my position here in Arizona. Made some s'mores, made some hot cocoa, had some nice ham sandwiches. Big shout out to my dad because he bought me a ham. He's like, I got you some. I'm like, oh, what is it? He showed up with like a freaking huge ham. I put it in the crock pot. It's amazing. You know, my win of the week always has to involve food. You know this. I love food.
Obviously.
You know this. Obviously. So yes, stargazing was a lot of fun. Hot cocoa was great. S'mores was great. And the ham was really delicious. So that is my win of the week. I even wrote it on my calendar. Just like, today was a good day. Today was a great day. But with that being said, that is our podcast for today. Hope you learned something, whether that be about finance and people who work in it, or the laws of the universe and how they equate to your everyday life. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please leave a 5-star review if you're listening on any of the wonderful podcast platforms that we happen to be on, as well as a thumbs up if you're on YouTube. Any final thoughts, Chris?
No, I really hoped that people were able to stick with us. I know that some of these concepts, when we're talking about the physics of finance, might seem a bit woo-woo, seem out there, might be like, none of this makes sense. But I promise you, when I heard these concepts too, I also thought like when the first person told me money is energy, I went, this guy's crazy. I don't have to listen to them anymore. Like your brain is a filtering mechanism, looking for any reason that you possibly can to not listen to people. Because there are, I don't know how many people, 10 million people in the world, something like that. There is so many people in the world. Everyone's saying something. Of course, you don't want to listen to the majority of those people. But the more you go down this rabbit hole, the more I've gone down this rabbit hole, at least, the more I've realized that these universal truths are truths for a reason. They're called truth for a reason. So explore that with your own self. On Monday, we're going to talk about the other 4 laws. Maybe I'll add a few extras in there just to make sure that the podcast goes long enough. I'm not sure how long that conversation is going to go, because on Monday, we ended up talking about quantum physics for about 20 minutes, which I did not expect to, but I just love talking about it. You know what maybe we could do on Monday's podcast is talk about 1, 2, 3, and 4 dimensions. We can talk about the dimensions of the universe.
Good Lord. We're
I can try to give you like,
I love it.
I'll give you like a PhD level in physics over the course of a podcast, but we'll have fun with that. We'll give it a try. So again, please like, subscribe, and most importantly, share the Fi Guys with one friend. Just tell one person about the Fi Guys. Bring someone along for this journey. That way, maybe you have somebody else to bounce these ideas off of, because together you guys can find truth. Maybe together you guys can figure out what is reality, because I don't believe that I know. I don't believe that I think everyone believes that they know, but no one actually knows. I feel that I'm comfortable enough to be like, I don't know, but I'm willing to try. So search, try to find the truth, figure it all out. That's our goal as human, is to walk uphill, try to figure out why we're all here. And with that, we'll see you on Monday. I'm Chris. He's Dom. Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.